So hello and welcome to this webinar on Mendeley, the Citation Manager. My name is Mandy Goodset and I am the Performing Arts and Humanities Librarian at Cleveland State. And I am conducting this webinar, and the library is conducting a number of workshops because we are ending our service to RefWorks as of June 30th of 2017. So we're attempting to help everybody transition to some other tools. The main two that we are supporting are Mendeley and Zotero. We'll have a Zotero webinar tomorrow, and we're hoping to continue offering in-person workshops as well on both of these. So hopefully this will help you decide if Mendeley is the citation manager for you. And we have one attendee with us today, and if he has questions, I've encouraged him to use the chat so that we can make sure that everything is clear, because I'm sure if he has questions, other people may have questions as well. So just very briefly about citation managers, they are software packages used to create personalized databases of citation information and notes, and they often allow researchers to add their citations to their work more efficiently as kind of a nice byproduct. As I said, we support Zotero and Mendeley. Both of them are free up to a certain amount of space. Mendeley was purchased by Elsevier in 2013, so that's kind of where its funding comes from. And it's different from other citation managers because it's designed to be useful for those who do a lot of work with PDFs. So if you already have a lot of your articles gathered in PDF form and you just want to organize them, work with them, annotate them, this is a great citation manager for you. It also has a nice looking interface, and as far as I know, it's got the most free web space, 2 gigs of free web space as compared to Zotero, which has a little bit less. However, that said, there are some pros and cons, some strengths and weaknesses to Mendeley, and hopefully you'll get a sense of that through this webinar. So the very first thing I want to do is talk about transitioning out of RefWorks if that's where you currently have your citations, because as I said, you'll need to save those citation files or they will be lost after June 30th of 2017. I believe that we're going to try to save all of those files, but it's in your best interest to just get them out of there, even if you don't do anything with those files right away. That way you can retain them. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into RefWorks, and if you're a little rusty, haven't done it in a while, we'll start on the library homepage, so library.csuohio.edu, and we're going to come down over here on the right. There's a RefWorks link. I can click on that and log in to RefWorks here. So here's my RefWorks. So the function that you're going to use to save your citations is the export function, and there are 2 places to use that. Up here under references, you can say export, and then over here on the right, there's an export button. Now, if you have like a folder hierarchy in your RefWorks account, you're going to lose that when you export it. So what I would recommend is to export things a folder at a time so that when you add them to your new home, either Mendeley or Zotero or elsewhere, you can then just label all of those things as being in part of one folder and then move on to the next one. So you can kind of retain that folder structure, if that makes any sense. So let's say this is the folder that I want to save. What I can do is say either specific ones are all in my list. Then I'm going to go over to export over here on the right. Click export, and you'll see that it's going to include all the references from this folder, all in my list. And then what I would recommend doing is exporting as a bibtex file. And what it'll do in my browser when I do this is it'll open it in a new tab, which is not terribly helpful. So I usually have it email the file to me. And then you'll get an email with a text file attached. And so the next step would be to import that file into your new home, which in this case, we're going to try it out in Mendeley. So here's our first introduction to Mendeley. Here's what it looks like. You'll go to mendeley.com in order to set up an account. So I'm going to just sign in, and I'll talk in a very short while about how you can set up your own account, but just so that we can continue with saving our materials here. I'll sign in. You can see what it looks like when I sign in. All right, so I'm going to go into my library up here in this top set of tabs. And I'm going to, you can choose a folder to put things in, but it's going to just put it in this all documents area anyway. So I'm just going to stay there, and I'm going to say add over here on the left. And here is a bib text file. So when you initially get the email with the file, it will be a text file. So you'll need to change the file extension from txt to bib. That's what I would recommend. You can also save it as an RIS file, as you can see. But we're going to do bib here. And I'm going to find, just a moment here. Here we go. Here's my bib file. So I'm going to open it up. You can see it's importing it, and it found 8 documents, and here they all are. Voila. What you will notice is that if I had a PDF attached in RefWorks, that PDF does not come with in this transfer. So if you want to save your PDFs as well, you're going to have to add them separately. The nice thing about Mendeley is that its strong suit is working with PDFs. So if you have a lot of PDFs that were in RefWorks, you could just drag them into Mendeley, and it should get all of this rich metadata right out of that PDF. So then you have both the citation information and your PDF all in the same place. So if you have just a lot of PDFs, maybe that is a better option than exporting things like I just demonstrated for you. So that's how you can kind of save your materials. Any questions about that process? I'm going to assume no. But if there is, oh, here we go. No questions. Okay, cool. So if anyone watching does have questions, you can always feel free to talk to your librarian, and at the end I'll kind of go through some ways that you can get more help. So that's kind of just a very brief overview of how to save your materials. So now let's talk a little bit about Mendeley. So as you can see, I have Mendeley open right now. This is the Mendeley online version. So I can get to this from anywhere. I can log into it, and from that page we initially started at, that's where you can set up an account for Mendeley Online. That's also where you can download Mendeley Desktop, which is a software that you would download to your desktop. You don't need it at all. You don't need to download anything, but it's useful if you like to access your materials offline, because you can use the Mendeley Desktop version whether or not you have access to internet. And then the third way that you can use Mendeley is through the web importer, and that is a browser plugin, and it looks like this. So here it is up here in the right upper corner. It's like a red box with an M in it, and that allows you to grab sources that you find on the web and add them into your web library very easily. Your desktop version and your online version are syncable, so it can always have the same materials. You just need to sync them when you enter. So I'm going to attempt to show you what the desktop version looks like. Let's see. I may or may not be able to show you. It looks very similar to this. So just kind of looking at this interface very quickly, in both of them there are going to be 3 panes, and you'll see them here. So over on the left, this is the left-hand pane, we've got all of the folders that I've created. It's very easy to create a folder to put citations in. And we've also got some other categories that are easy to jump around in. And we'll talk about my publications later. Anything that you've starred or favorited, you can see at one time. Things that you've recently read or recently added. You can also create groups in Mendeley. So you can say I have a couple of groups here, and you can go into those groups, add materials. You can have multiple people in the groups, obviously, and they can also add materials. And then we have the trash, you can see what has been trashed. So that's kind of the left-hand pane, pretty easy. Then in this middle pane, you can see all of the materials that I have, all of my documents, and I can go into a specific folder and see everything in that folder. If I click on something, I get some more options up here. I can add this to a specific folder if I would like, or a group. I can remove it from the folder or just delete it entirely from my library, or I can export it as a citation to Microsoft Word. And then over here, actually before I move on, I do want to point out these little icons here. So as you can see, I can star things, which I find is an easy way to kind of split things into two categories, starred or not starred, if you want to keep track of things that way. There's also this little green dot. That means that I've added this to my library, but I haven't actually looked at the record yet. And one reason that Mendeley does this is because it wants you to check and make sure that the metadata that it gathered is accurate. And it's also another way to keep track of your materials. And then finally, here we have this little PDF icon, and that, surprisingly enough, tells you that there's a PDF attached to this citation. So I can click on it, and it will open it up in its own viewer. And this is something that is unique to Mendeley. In the viewer, you can see, here's my PDF, but I can actually annotate this PDF right within this viewer. I can highlight things, and I can do that in different colors. Let's see if I can get it to do anything. Here we go. I can create a highlight, and up here I can choose different colors, so maybe I want it to be gray. I can also add notes. So here my highlight stayed. Maybe I want to add a note to this, so I can add this little note. And it is also color-coded, so I can change the color, and it'll say who's adding the note if you're working on like a group project or something like that. And at any time you can remove your note or remove your highlights here with this little garbage can. So this is a nice way if you prefer to work with your PDFs online and you want to be able to highlight and annotate. This is a really handy tool for that. So back to our interface here. The last pane is the one over on the right, and this one describes this source. It gives you all of the metadata that Mendeley was able to pull about it. At any time you can edit it, and I will tell you that, well, it's an amazing software. Mendeley does not always do a great job of pulling the metadata on different sources, so I would recommend taking a look at what it has captured and checking that it's accurate. So it's very easy to edit it. I just click edit and it will have all of these different boxes and I can change things. You'll also see there's this notes tab over here. So if instead of writing notes within the PDF, you want to just write kind of a larger scale, broad note about that source, you can do that in here. You can type notes in here. So that's the interface in a nutshell. Any questions about anything in here? Pretty straightforward. I will show also, when we first logged in, you saw I had a feed. So Mendeley is kind of, it looks a little more like a social media platform. It's trying to go for that look, I think. So you can share your thoughts. You can connect with other people. You can also, you can have your own profile in Mendeley, and you can make it, you know, another professional touch point for people to find you online. You can add a photo, add research interests, and then this is very interesting. You can add your own publications, and these are meant to be only preprint, so trying to follow the rules of copyright, or open access articles or presentations or whatever that you've written. And so similar to CSU's institutional repository, is trying to provide another point of access for these materials within copyright, obviously. So, so here are some of mine, and you can see you can also add an ORCID, which is an ID that you can attach to your name, especially if you have a common name or if you've changed your name, maybe you got married and you changed your name, this ID remains the same and you can attach it to all of your publications. So this has nothing to do with Mendeley, but just a little shout out to ORCID. It's a really good idea to have one of these. Very easy to set up. So this is another feature of Mendeley that is unique. Zotero doesn't really have this kind of social aspect the way that Mendeley does. All right. So the next thing I wanted to do was demonstrate the web importer a little bit to show you how you can add things pretty easily to your library. So to do that, we're going to go into a few different sources and see how that works. Again, the web importer can be added, can be downloaded from Mendeley.com, and it's this little red box up here. So I'm going to first go into the library's catalog, Scholar, and I'll do a keyword search in here. And I just do online learning, the go-to topic here. So there are a couple of ways to add things to Mendeley using this web importer. One is to, when you do an initial search in some sort of search engine, is to try to import things before you've chosen anything in your list. So I'll click on this web importer thing. We'll see how that goes. So it doesn't go great in this case. It just thinks that we're looking at a web page. And hopefully you can see the little box that popped up here. I just want to make sure that you can see that. I guess I will not know. So here's a box pops up and it says this is a web page. And obviously we're not looking at just a web page. We're looking at some different sources here. So we can try again by clicking on a particular source and see if it can recognize this as a source. So we'll try it again. And when I click on it this time, it has a couple of different options here, which is a little unusual. And I can check the details of either one and see, is this the source that I'm looking for? And if yes, I can just say save, and it will add it to whatever folder I have indicated here in my web library. You can see this web library button here is nicely placed, so I can just pop right back into my web library at any time and see how things are going. So that works pretty well. It captured the metadata about this source. This is a book, an ebook, so I wasn't hoping to get the full text anyway. I just want to be able to cite this. So let's go into one of the kind of more popular databases the library offers called Academic Search Complete. And if we do our search in here, we'll try the same thing. Oh, Lordy. We'll have to just log in again really quick. Here we go. All right, so here's my list. So we'll try that method again. We'll try looking at the entire list first and see how it does. So I click this little red box up here, and it's doing a much better job. It found all of these different articles, but you'll notice that there are 20 articles in this list, and there are certainly not 20 in this list because it couldn't quite recognize all of these. You'll also notice that we have PDF full text links here, but Mendeley wasn't really able to recognize that there are PDFs here, even though we told it, please download the PDFs if they're available. So it just isn't indicating that it acknowledged that. So at least though we can grab the citation information from however many we want and say save, and it will add those to my library. So let's try, this was one that didn't appear in the list, this first one. We'll try opening that, and let's see how Mendeley does with this one. If I click on that red box. So once again, it just thinks it's a web page when it's clearly a scholarly article, so that's not great. This is kind of a weakness of Mendeley, I would say. So something that you might consider if you really want to invest in Mendeley and put all of your energy into it. If you just download the PDF for these and you click and drag them into Mendeley, it should be able to capture this metadata that it wasn't able to recognize here. And then you'll also have the PDF for sure within your Mendeley library. So that might be another way, instead of using this web importer, to just try clicking and dragging PDFs. So let's try Google Scholar. This is one that I would usually just look at the list anyway and go from there. So let's try the Mendeley web importer. And hopefully you can see that it's doing a great job. It has recognized all of these different sources, and it is recognizing when there is a PDF attached. And it is going to add that to my library if I want to add that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It takes a little longer because it's grabbing the PDF. So if you use Google Scholar for a lot of your research, then you don't run into as many of these difficulties with the web importer for Mendeley. I'll just let it finish up. So the last one I wanted to show you is just a regular Google search, and obviously it's shown that it can you can add a source that's just a web page. So if I click on this, it'll look very similar. It doesn't do a great job of identifying anything about this web page. It'll usually be able to tell what the title is, but that's maybe it. And that's the case here. So if you wanted to add authors or date or anything else, you're going to have to add those pieces of metadata yourself and then add them to your collection. So depending on how much you use sources like this for your research, that may play a role in whether or not you choose to use Mendeley. And then the last thing I wanted to show you as far as adding materials that is not the web importer, I had mentioned a couple of times that that you can just drag PDFs into your Mendeley library. So I'm going to just show you what that looks like. So I have 4 PDFs here. I don't know if you can see them, but I'm going to just drag them into my test folder. And here they are. And whether or not it can recognize the author, the journal, things like that is really kind of hit and miss. So here you can see it's doing okay. It's recognizing the title and the author for a couple of them. And if there's information that's missing, again, I can just add that over here in this pane over on the right by clicking edit. So that was pretty easy to add these things. I can add more information, but I already have the PDFs, which for some people is enough information. So that's adding things. And then I also wanted to show you how to use the Word plugin, the Microsoft Word plugin for Mendeley. So when you first download Mendeley Desktop, it will prompt you right away to add the plugin for Word, which is very, very quick to download. Otherwise, you can go to mendeley.com or into your desktop to see how that works. And so now I'm going to attempt to share with you my Word document. So hopefully that worked. So here I'm just in regular old Microsoft Word. Up here, there's a References tab. And if you've downloaded the Mendeley plugin, it will look a little different. It will have added this Mendeley Cytomatic little section here. So you can choose whatever citation style you'd like. You can see this is not a terribly long list, but they have many, many more styles here under citation styles, and you can search for more. You can go to Get More Styles to find even more. And this is, as you can see, how I found MLA 8th edition. If you're an MLA user and you need the newest edition, it is in there. Just one second. There we go. We're at MLA. So as I'm typing my article or whatever I'm writing, if I want to add an in-text citation, I can come up here to Insert Citation. It will, hopefully you can see, it will pop up a little box that says Search Your Library. You can also go to Mendeley if you're not sure what you're looking for is called, but I know I have some things in here about online learning, so I'm going to choose that. I'll say OK, and it will format an in-text citation for me. And you can do that however many times you need to. So we'll say OK. And then whenever you're ready, when you're done with everything and you want to insert your bibliography, you can say Insert Bibliography, and it will pull the citations for anything that you've added an in-text citation for so far in your paper and put it into your bibliography in hopefully the right citation style. So it's very easy. This is very popular with students. and with faculty. Another nice thing about it is, let's say you wrote an article for a specific journal, and it has a specific style, and it wasn't accepted, but you want to submit it to another journal, and it needs a totally different style. You can very quickly change the style up here, and it will just go back through and change all of your citations within your whole Word document. So that can save you a lot of time when you're doing your research and you need to switch citation styles very quickly. All right, any questions about anything I've talked about so far? I hear a question. Okay, great. I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about, but I did want to just very quickly show you how you can get more help if you do have questions. And to do that, I'm going to go back to, let's see, back to my document here. So I have a handout which I can share with anyone else who's watching, as well as my one participant. I can send that to you. And it gives a link to this. This is a research guide just about Mendeley. So if you want the URL, it's researchguides.csuohio.edu/Mendeley. And there are videos, there's kind of comparisons between different tools in here. Lots of helpful things if you're just getting started. And also how to add your RefWorks materials to Mendeley, which I think is something, if you're using RefWorks, you would want to do kind of before you do anything else. So this is a place you can go. You can also always ask a librarian for help. So if you go to the library homepage and you go over to Ask Your Personal Librarian over on the left, this is me. I'm Mandy. You can always ask me questions about Mendeley. I'm happy to talk about it. Or you can find your personal librarian in here. Ben Richards is the one doing a webinar about Zotero, so he would be a great person to ask about Zotero. So any of us are happy to answer your questions about citation managers or about what's going on with RefWorks. We like to offer future workshops in person, possibly online as well. So stay tuned for those if you prefer to come in person and do kind of more hands-on stuff. But otherwise, that's all I have, and I hope that this is helpful for you. And if you have questions, that you feel comfortable to ask them. So unless there are any other questions, that's all I have for today. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for stopping by, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.